They declared the whole shoreline theirs. Ridgemont Point HOA. For 30 long years, I'd quietly filled my water tanks from that shore, long before their cookie-cutter McMansions marched in and claimed the place. Then Darlene Pritchett, HOA president, marched right up to my property line with her politician smile and clipboard held like a club. Community standards now prohibit your unsightly industrial extraction. They slammed a padlock on the access gate, slapped up no trespassing signs with my name in red letters, and cut off my water. I just smiled and said, "See you soon," because I know something about that water line they're about to learn the hard way. My name is Vernon Huxley. I'm 62, though my back feels closer to 80 on most mornings. I've lived on this land my whole life, 40 acres of pine and oaks sloping down to Crystal Lake. My grandfather homesteaded it in 1952 when the county was nothing but logging camps and dirt roads. He built a small house. My father added the barn and equipment shed. Me, I turned it into a living. For 30 years, I've run Huxley Water Services. Nothing fancy, no corporate logo, no fleet of matching trucks. Just me, one reliable Ford F-350 with a 500-gallon tank bolted in the bed, and a reputation for never missing a delivery. I pump clean, spring-fed water from Crystal Lake, tested quarterly, colder and clearer than anything the city pipes can deliver, and haul it to 40 rural families scattered across the county. Ranchers, farmers, retirees on fixed incomes living in houses their parents built. Good people who pay on time and call me by my first name. My wife, Caroline, used to ride along on deliveries. She'd bring cookies to the older customers, help me wrestle hoses, keep the books in her neat handwriting. Cancer took her 5 years ago. Now it's just me, the lake, and the rhythm of filling tanks and driving gravel roads back to an empty house that still smells faintly of her lavender soap if I close my eyes and remember hard enough. The work keeps me sane, keeps me useful. Then Ridgemont Point showed up. 3 years ago, a development company bought the old Kessler Timber Tract, 200 acres of logged-over land that bordered the north side of my property. In 18 months, they cleared, graded, and threw up 87 identical houses, vinyl siding in shades of beige and gray, 2-car garages, HOA-mandated mailboxes. Starting price, $485,000. The brochures called it luxury lakeside living. Never mind that only 3 lots actually touched the water. The rest just had a view if you squinted through the trees. I watched it rise with the same feeling you get when storm clouds roll in. Knew trouble was coming, just didn't know exactly what shape it would take. Darlene Pritchett moved into Lot 14 in the first wave. I remember because she showed up at my gate 1 week after closing, all smiles and expensive sunglasses, asking if I happened to know who maintained the private road we both used. I told her the county handled the main road. The easement spur to my place was mine to keep up. She wrinkled her nose. "It's terribly dusty. I'm sure the HOA can contribute to paving costs." I smiled and said my truck did fine on gravel. That was our first conversation. Should have known then. Darlene was 48, a former city real estate agent, the kind who smiles while she negotiates you into a corner. She was elected HOA president within 6 months, running on maintaining property values and community standards, which apparently meant rules about fence heights, approved paint colors, and exactly how many decorative rocks you could put in your front yard. My father taught me everything about water systems, how aquifers work, how to read geological surveys where the underground springs feed the lake. He helped survey the original utility easements when the county ran power lines through in the 70s. I inherited that knowledge the same way I inherited the land, through grease-stained hands and long afternoons walking property lines with a surveyor's map. So when Ridgemont Point went up, I walked over one day and watched the construction. Noticed they drilled a private well system, no connection to county water. Thought it was odd. Most developments that size are required to hook up to municipal lines. Figured they'd gotten some variance. I also noticed their main supply line ran through a utility easement that crossed 20 feet of my property to reach the county road. Didn't think much of it then. Probably should have. The fence went up on a Tuesday in June. I just finished morning deliveries. 6 tanks, all regulars, and was heading back to refill when I saw the crew. For guys in high-vis vests, a diesel post-hole digger growling as it chewed earth, chain link panels stacked in neat rows right where my access path met the shoreline. The air smelled like fresh-turned dirt and hydraulic fluid. I parked and walked over. The foreman looked up. Rick Patterson, guy I'd known since high school. His face said he already knew this was going to be ugly. Vernon, Rick. I nodded at the stakes, red surveyor ribbons flapping. What's this? HOA job. Perimeter fence along the lakefront common area. Supposed to be done by Friday. He handed me a rolled plat map without meeting my eyes. I unrolled it. Neat pastel shading, professional labels, and a boundary line that put 6 feet of my land inside their green space. Before I could speak, a silver Lexus pulled up. Darlene stepped out in white capris and turquoise silk, oversized sunglasses pushed up like a headband. Behind her came Brad Kessler, attorney and HOA board member, permanent scowl, and Dennis Ham, retired financial advisor with a golf tan and a Rolex that caught the sun. Mr. Huxley, Darlene said, smile bright and empty. I see you've met our landscaping crew. Your map's wrong. Brad stepped forward, holding an identical plat. The Ridgemont Point development filing, recorded with the county in 2021, clearly designates, my grandfather fought this exact fight in 1960, I said, keeping my voice level. County tried to claim the shoreline for a public boat launch, so they had jurisdiction. Grandfather pulled the original 1952 homestead deed with explicit perpetual riparian rights. Judge ruled for him in 10 minutes. You can't erase 70 years of legal precedent by filing a new map and hoping nobody notices. Darlene's smile tightened. We're simply trying to maintain property values. Your commercial operation, she said it like I was running a scrapyard, creates concerns about water quality and community aesthetics. Water quality. I looked at her. Really looked. My lake water's tested quarterly. Spring-fed. Cleaner than what comes out of your tap. So why are you worried about your water? Something flickered across her face, just for a second. Dennis shifted his weight. Brad cleared his throat. Because if you are, I went on, maybe you should have thought about that before building 87 houses on a private well system. I let that sit. Watch Brad's jaw tighten. Most developments your size require county water hookup, I said. Cheaper to drill your own. Our water system is fully permitted and compliant, Brad said. Too quickly. Good. Then you won't mind my fence staying on my side of the property line. I pulled out my phone, showed Rick my survey. He looked at it, looked at his stakes, swore under his breath. Vernon, this ain't your fault. I handed him a 20. Sorry for wasting your time. Rick nodded to his crew. They started packing up. Darlene's face flushed red. This is absurd. We have every legal right, not mine, I said. I met her eyes. Touch my land again without permission. I'm calling the sheriff. And Brad, next time you file a plat that includes someone else's deeded property, you might want to check the title history first. Sloppy work for an attorney. I got in my truck. The new glow plugs made the engine roar smooth as silk. As I pulled away, I saw old Emmett Calhoun's pickup slowing on the road. My neighbor, 76, runs cattle on the property west of mine. He rolled down his window. Everything all right, Vern? They try to fence off my lake access. Emmett looked past me at Darlene and her board members still standing by the abandoned fence materials. He spat into the gravel. City folks think they can buy the whole damn world. He tipped his hat. You need anything, you holler. I drove straight to the county clerk's office before closing. $43 for certified copies of my deed. The 1952 Homestead Grant, the riparian rights attachment. I held those yellowed pages, typewriter font, embossed seal you could feel with your fingertips, and thought about grandfather Huxley standing in front of a judge, refusing to back down. Then I made 2 calls. First, a surveyor, $1,200 for a certified boundary survey. Money I didn't want to spend. The truck needed tires. The main pump needed a new impeller. But you don't save money by losing land. Second, Marilyn Vasquez, the attorney who handled Caroline's estate. Vernon, she said after I explained, you're legally right. But understand, they have deeper pockets. They'll drag this out, bury you in motions, bleed your savings. Even if you win eventually. So what do? Document everything. Get that survey. If they install fences or locks, call the sheriff immediately. Make it official. She paused. And Vernon, let them make mistakes. People with money and lawyers get overconfident. They'll slip up. I thanked her and hung up. That evening Emmett called. Saw 3 HOA trucks drive by today after you left. Slowed down near your gate. Might want to keep an eye out. I looked out the kitchen window at the lake. Caroline used to tell me I worried too much. That right always won eventually. I wasn't so sure anymore, but I knew how to watch my back. 3 days later, the newsletter arrived in my mailbox. Ridgemont Point Community News and Updates, June edition. Glossy paper, full color, HOA logo stamped across the top like an official seal. I'd never gotten one before, probably because I wasn't part of their community and they knew it. I flipped it open, standing by the roadside. My name was on page 2. Protecting Our Community. Addressing Commercial Exploitation of Shared Resources by Darlene Pritchett, HOA President. 3 paragraphs about an adjacent commercial water extraction operation that posed potential environmental and safety risks to the lakefront community. Talked about unregulated industrial equipment, aquifer depletion concerns, the need to protect property values from incompatible land use. Never used my name. Didn't have to. Everyone knew exactly who she meant. The last line. The HOA board is exploring all legal remedies to ensure our community's water resources remain protected for current and future residents. Our community's water resources. Like the lake was theirs. I drove into town, stopped at Mel's Diner for lunch. Place was packed, usual Thursday crowd, mostly locals. I slid into a booth, ordered the chicken fried steak, pulled out my phone to check messages. That's when I heard it. 2 tables over, a woman I didn't recognize, 40-something, yoga clothes, definitely Ridgemont Point, talking to another woman I'd seen at the grocery store. Apparently, he's been pumping water without any permits for decades. Darlene said the county's investigating. I mean, what if he's contaminating the lake? We swim there. The kids swim there. Her friend nodded. I heard his equipment leaks diesel, and he parks those awful trucks right on the shoreline. My chicken fried steak arrived. I cut into it slowly, chewing, listening. Someone should really do something before he causes an environmental disaster. I set down my fork, stood up, walked over to their table. Afternoon, ladies. They looked up. The yoga woman's eyes went wide. She recognized me, probably from one of Darlene's neighborhood meetings. I'm Vernon Huxley, the guy with the awful trucks. I kept my voice friendly, even smiled. Just wanted to clarify a few things. I've held a state-issued water extraction permit for 30 years, renewed annually, inspected every 2 years by the Department of Natural Resources. My equipment is maintained to EPA standards. I've got the service records to prove it. The lake water I pump is tested quarterly by a certified lab, cleaner than municipal tap water. And I've been doing this since before your neighborhood existed. The yoga woman's face flushed. I was just repeating what I heard. I understand. I nodded to both of them. But maybe next time someone tells you a man's destroying the environment, you might ask to see some evidence first. Enjoy your lunch. I went back to my booth, finished eating. The 2 women left before I did, whispering. By the time I got home, my phone was ringing. Mrs. Kowalski, one of my oldest customers, 83, lived alone on a ranch north of town. Vernon, honey, I got the strangest call. A woman from some homeowners association saying there were questions about your water quality. Said I should consider switching to a different service. My jaw clenched. What did you tell her? I told her I've been drinking your water for 26 years, and I'm still alive, so she could kindly mind her own business. Mrs. Kowalski chuckled, but she called 3 of my neighbors too. Got everyone all worried. I'll handle it. Mrs. K, don't worry. I'm not worried, dear. I trust you. But that woman sounded awfully determined. I hung up and stared at the lake. Afternoon sun turned the water gold, same way it had every summer evening since I was a kid. Caroline and I used to sit on the dock with our feet in that water, talking about nothing, watching the light change. Now Darlene was trying to poison it. Not the water, the people's trust in me. I opened my laptop, pulled up the Ridgemont Point Facebook group, public, anyone could join. Scrolled through recent posts. For new ones about me in the last 2 days. Anyone else concerned about the industrial operation next door? Or it's not even properly licensed. Saw one of those water trucks leaking fluid near the lake access. Shouldn't we report this? Does anyone know if that guy's water is actually safe? Thinking of warning the rural residents who use him. And then, posted that morning by Brad Kessler. For those asking about the adjacent property situation, the HOA has retained environmental counsel and will be filing a formal complaint with the county. Community health and safety must come first. 23 likes. 14 comments. All supportive. I sat there in the gathering dark, laptop screen glowing blue against my face, and felt something shift in my chest. Not anger. Not yet. Something colder. They wanted to destroy my reputation, scare off my customers, choke out my business, so I'd have no choice but to sell and leave. Fine. But if they wanted to talk about environmental safety and water quality, we could do that. Because I've been thinking about their private well system. About how expensive it would have been to connect 87 homes to county water. About how confident Brad had sounded when he said their system was fully permitted and compliant. Maybe it was time to check that. I opened a new browser tab and pulled up the county's public records portal. Started searching for Ridgemont Point development permits. It was going to be a long night. I found it at 2 in the morning. Permit number 2021 DEV 847. Ridgemont Point Residential Development. File March 2021. Approved June 2021. I scrolled through the PDF, site plans, utility layouts, drainage calculations. Everything looked standard until I reached the water system section. Water source, private well system. Estimated yield, 45 gallons per minute. Approved for residential use, maximum 50 units. I read that line 3 times. 50 units. They'd built 87 homes. I kept digging. Found the original development application. The plan showed phase construction. Phase 1 for 50 homes. Phase 2 pending county water hookup approval. But there was no Phase 2 permit. No county water approval. Just a filed amendment from August 2022 that changed Phase 2 pending utilities to Phase 2 approved for private well expansion. Someone had signed off on it. County inspector name, Ronald Vickers. I wrote that down. Then I pulled up the Water District meeting minutes, public record, posted online monthly. Scroll back 2 years. Found what I was looking for in April 2023. Agenda Item 8. Ridgemont Point Development Water Capacity Concern. The district engineer had flagged the development. Noted that well yield reports showed declining output. Recommended mandatory county hookup before Phase 2 occupancy. The item was marked under review. Never resolved. Just dropped. I leaned back in my chair. The house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. Outside, the lake was black glass under a half moon. They'd built 37 illegal homes on a well system that couldn't support them, and someone at the county had looked the other way. My phone buzzed. Text message. Unknown number. Stop digging or you'll regret it. I stared at the screen, set the phone down, went back to the laptop. By morning, I had a folder. Permits, meeting minutes, water yield reports, county inspector signatures. I also had a name I recognized. Grant Pritchett, listed as Site Development Manager for Ridgemont Point. Darlene's husband. The same Grant Pritchett who received a $50,000 completion bonus, according to the final development filing. Interesting. I made coffee, strong and black, and stood at the kitchen window watching sunrise paint the lake orange when I heard the sound. Sharp crack, then a hiss. My truck. I walked outside barefoot, still holding my coffee mug. The F-350 sat in the driveway, listing to one side. All 4 tires flat, not punctured. Slashed. Clean cuts through the sidewall. The kind of knife that makes when you're not worried about being quiet. No other damage. Just the tires. The message was clear. We know where you live. I crouched down, ran my fingers along the cut in the front driver's side. The rubber was still slightly warm. They'd done this within the last hour, maybe while I was in the shower. I stood up, looked around. Gates still closed. No cars on the road. Whoever did it had walked in, done the job, walked out. Professional, or at least methodical. Commercial truck tires. $1,800 to replace all 4. I took photos. Then I called the sheriff. Deputy Martinez arrived 40 minutes later. Young guy, maybe 30. Took notes while I explained. photographed the tires, walked the perimeter, checked for footprints. Found nothing useful. Driveway was gravel. Grass hadn't been wet. You got any idea who did this? I've got a pretty good guess. I told him about the HOA dispute, the fence, the newsletter, the social media campaign. He wrote it down, but his expression said what we both knew. Without evidence, there wasn't much he could do. I'll file the report. You might want to install some cameras. Already planning on it. After he left, I called Emmett. Need a favor. Name it. Can I borrow your truck for a few days? Mine's out of commission. Tire trouble. He didn't sound surprised. Yeah. Come get it. Keys are in the ignition. I walked the half-mile to Emmett's place. His old Dodge sat in the driveway. 30 years old, rust on the fenders, but the engine was solid. He was waiting on the porch with coffee. Heard you've been poking around county records, he said. Word travels fast. Small county. Smaller when you know the right people. He sipped his coffee. Ronald Vickers, the inspector who signed off on Ridgemont Point. What about him? Retired last year. Bought a boat. 42-foot cabin cruiser. Paid cash. On a county inspector's salary. I let that sit for a moment. You think I don't think anything. I'm just telling you what I know. He handed me his truck keys. But if someone wanted to build something they shouldn't, and they needed a county inspector to overlook some details, well, that's a nice boat. I drove back home in Emmett's truck. The steering wheel was cracked leather, warm from the sun. The radio didn't work, but it ran. When I pulled into my driveway, there was a car waiting. New Honda Accord. A woman got out. Mid-30s, professional clothes, confident walk. Mr. Huxley. That's me. Shayla Briggs. I live in Ridgemont Point, lot 43. She extended her hand. I shook it, firm grip. I'm a forensic accountant, and I think we need to talk about Darlene Pritchett. Shayla sat at my kitchen table with a laptop and 3 file folders. I moved to Ridgemont Point 8 months ago. Paid $510,000 for a 4-bedroom that appraised for $540,000. Good investment, right? She didn't wait for an answer. First HOA meeting I attended, I asked to see the annual budget. Darlene said it was available upon request. I requested it. She said she'd email it. Never did. So you dug. I'm a forensic accountant. It's what I do. She opened the first folder. Spreadsheets highlighted in yellow and pink. HOA dues are $450 per month. 87 homes. That's $470,000 annual revenue. The published budget shows $180,000 in expenses. Landscaping, management fees, insurance. Leaves $290,000 unaccounted for. I let out a low whistle. It gets better. She opened the second folder. There's a company called DP Development Solutions, LLC, registered in Delaware. It's been receiving $8,000 per month from the HOA for community enhancement consulting for the past 28 months. That's $224,000. What kind of consulting? Great question. No derivatives. No reports. No contracts specifying scope of work. Just invoices and payments. She slid a document across the table. DP Development Solutions is owned by Grant Pritchett, Darlene's husband. I looked at the registration. Delaware, LLC. Grant listed as managing member. That's embezzlement. That's exactly what it is. Shayla leaned back. And here's what I think happened. Grant was the site manager for Ridgemont Point during construction. He cut corners, built 37 extra homes without proper water permits, and pocketed a $50,000 bonus for cost savings. When the well system started failing, they panicked. Darlene ran for HOA president to control the narrative and access the budget. Now, they're funneling money to themselves while trying to figure out how to fix the water problem before everyone finds out. And my lake access is their backup plan. If they can take your shoreline, they can tap into your water system and solve the problem without admitting they built illegally. She closed the folders. But here's the thing. I'm not doing this just to help you. I paid $500,000 for a house that might be uninhabitable in a year. I want justice. I want my money back. I looked at her across the table. Sharp eyes. No nonsense. The kind of person who wouldn't be here if she wasn't absolutely sure. What do you need from me? Whatever evidence you found on the illegal development. Permits, water reports, anything. She tapped her laptop. I'll combine it with the financial fraud. Then we take it public. County Water Board meeting. Media present. We bury them with evidence before they can spin the story. You realize they'll come after you. They already are. Someone left a dead rat in my mailbox yesterday. She said it matter-of-factly, like discussing the weather. And my car got keyed last week after I asked questions at the board meeting. I'm already in this fight. Might as well win it. I stood up, went to my office, came back with my folder, permits, inspector signatures, water district minutes, the whole thing, laid it on the table next to hers. Shayla opened it, started reading. Her expression shifted from neutral to focused to satisfied. This is perfect. The inspector's signatures, the capacity reports, the dropped agenda item. This is a conspiracy. She looked up. Vernon, we can destroy them. Legally, publicly, completely. Give me 2 weeks to organize everything. Then we request an emergency water board hearing. Public forum. Invite every media outlet in the county. She smiled, thin and sharp. And we watched Darlene try to explain why she's stealing from her neighbors while covering up a criminal development scheme. I thought about Caroline, about the lake, about 30 years of honest work being smeared by someone who'd been here 3 years and thought money made her untouchable. 2 weeks, I said. Let's do it. The next 2 weeks moved like a carefully choreographed dance. Shayla and I met every other evening at my place. She'd bring her laptop and audit reports. I'd have county documents and hand-drawn maps of the water infrastructure spread across the kitchen table. We worked under the yellow glow of the overhead light, drinking coffee that got progressively worse as the nights wore on. The valve is here. I pointed to a spot on the map where the utility easement crossed my property, 20 feet inside my fence line. Controls the main supply to the entire development. It's part of the easement agreement. They have access for maintenance, but I retain ownership of the land. Shayla studied it. Can you legally shut it off? With proper notice, yes. 24-hour written notice for utility maintenance. It's in the easement terms. I'd read that document so many times I had it memorized. My father had negotiated those terms back in the 70s when the county ran power lines through. He'd been smart enough to include clauses about property owner rights. So you give notice, shut off their water, and force them to the table. Not yet. I lean back. That's the hammer. We use it after we've built the case. Show up at the water board meeting with all the evidence. Make them squirm in public. Then remind them who actually controls their water supply. She smiled. I like how you think. We divided the work. Shayla focused on financial forensics, tracking every payment from the HOA to DP Development Solutions, cross-referencing board meeting minutes, building a timeline of the embezzlement. I focused on the development violations, photographing the well system, documenting the 87 homes versus the 50-unit permit, pulling inspection records. I also installed cameras. 4 of them. 1 covering the driveway, 1 on the gate, 2 watching the lake access. Wireless, motion-activated, uploading to cloud storage. Cost me $800. Worth every penny. The cameras caught someone on night 3. Dark hoodie, gloves, walking on my driveway at 2 a.m. He got within 10 feet of my truck, Emmett's truck, actually, before the motion light kicked on. He ran. I filed the footage with Deputy Martinez. Added it to the growing file. Emmett brought intel. Turned out Ronald Vickers, the retired county inspector with the expensive boat, was a regular at Harvey's bar downtown. Emmett's nephew tended bar there. One night, 3 beers in, Vickers had bragged about consulting fees he'd earned from developers who needed permits expedited. Not proof, Emmett said, but it's a thread. I pulled Vickers's inspection reports for Ridgemont Point, compared them to standard county inspection checklists. He'd signed off on Phase 2 occupancy without requiring a county water hookup, directly contradicting water district recommendations. Either incompetent or paid off. We needed witnesses. Shayla started quietly approaching other HOA residents, the ones who'd seemed uncomfortable at board meetings, who'd asked questions Darlene had shut down. She found 11 people willing to submit written statements about Darlene's financial opacity, Brad's aggressive legal threats, the culture of intimidation. One of them was a retired civil engineer named Marcus Webb. He'd reviewed the well system when he bought his house and flagged concerns about capacity. When he raised it at a board meeting, Brad had threatened to sue him for defamation of the community. "I'll testify," Marcus said when Shayla brought him to meet me. "I've got the calculations. That well can't support 87 homes. The aquifer is dropping 3 feet per year. It'll fail completely within 18 months. Can you put that in writing?" "Already did." He handed me a report, 20 pages, charts, graphs, geological surveys. Free of charge. I'm tired of being bullied. I also called a reporter, Iris Williams, at the Crystal County Gazette. She'd done a feature on my water business 5 years ago, back when Caroline was still alive. Good journalist. Thorough. "Vernon, this is bigger than a property dispute," she said after I gave her the overview. "This is public corruption, embezzlement, and a potential health crisis. If that well fails, where do 87 families get their water?" "Exactly. When's the water board meeting?" "June 28th, 7 p.m. I'll be there. And I'm calling the TV stations in Capital City. They love stories like this." The last piece was the water board itself. I submitted a formal request for an emergency public hearing on Ridgemont Point Development water system capacity and compliance concerns. State law required the board to schedule public hearings within 30 days of request. They scheduled it for June 28th. I sent the official notice to Darlene by certified mail. Notice of scheduled utility easement maintenance. June 27th, 6 a.m. to June 29th, 6 p.m. Water service interruption expected. 48 hours before the hearing. Right when she'd need to be preparing her defense. Shayla read the notice and laughed. "You're evil. I'm Pharaoh." The night before the hearing, I stood on my dock watching the sunset. The lake was calm, mirror smooth, reflecting pink and orange clouds. Caroline used to say the lake had memory. That water holds on to everything it touches. I hope she was right, because tomorrow that water was going to help me end this. The water shut off at 6 a.m. on June 27th. I'd walked out to the valve at dawn, the grass still wet with dew, and turn it 90 degrees clockwise. The metal was cold under my palm. I heard the pressure change in the pipes, a deep groan, then silence. By 8 a.m., my phone started ringing. First call was from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. Woman's voice. Frantic. "This is Linda Hutchkins from Ridgemont Point. We have no water. My toilets won't flush. Is this because of the HOA situation? Please call back." Second call, 10 minutes later. "Mr. Huxley, this is Tom Reeves, lot 62. We've got 3 kids and no water for showers before school." By 9 a.m., I had 47 missed calls. At 9:30, Darlene showed up. She came in a black BMW this time. Not alone. Brad Kessler followed in his Mercedes, and behind him a white van with Keller and Associates. Legal services printed on the side. She brought her attorney. Big guns. I was sitting on my porch with coffee, waiting. Darlene got out of the car. She'd skipped the yoga pants today, black pantsuit, heels that sank slightly in my gravel driveway, hair pulled back tight. Her face was red. Whether from anger or panic, I couldn't tell. Turn the water back on. Each word clipped. "Good morning to you too. This is illegal." "No, it's not." I sipped my coffee. "Utility easement maintenance. 24-hour written notice," which I provided. "Everything's in compliance with the easement agreement your development signed." The attorney stepped forward. 50s, gray suit, briefcase that probably cost more than my truck. "Mr. Huxley, I'm David Keller. What you're doing constitutes tortious interference with essential services. We're prepared to seek an immediate injunction." "Go ahead." I set down my coffee. "By the time you file the paperwork, get a judge to hear it, and serve the injunction, my maintenance will be complete. 48 hours, like the notice said. Water comes back on Sunday morning." "You son of a," Darlene started. "Ma'am," I kept my voice level. "I've got security cameras recording this conversation. I'd be careful about threats." Brad spoke up. "We can make this worth your while. The HOA is prepared to offer $100,000 for a permanent easement expansion, plus a formal written apology regarding the fence situation." I looked at him. "You try to steal my shoreline, smear my reputation, vandalize my truck, call my customers, and tried to destroy my business, and now you think you can write a check and make it go away. We're trying to be reasonable. No, you're panicking. Because tomorrow night, there's a county water board meeting where I'm going to present evidence that your development was built illegally, that you've got 37 homes over your permitted capacity, that your well system is failing, and that you've been embezzling HOA funds to cover it up. Darlene's face went pale. That's slander, Keller said quickly. It's public record. Permits, inspection reports, water district minutes, HOA financial statements. I smiled. All legal, all documented, all about to become very public. You have no idea what you're dealing with, Darlene said. Her voice shook. We have lawyers. We have resources. We will bury you in litigation. With what money? The $224,000 your husband stole from the HOA. I'll let that land. Watched her face. Yeah, we know about DP Development Solutions. We know about Grant's consulting fees. We know about the $50,000 bonus he got for cutting corners on Phase 2. We know everything. The attorney's expression shifted. He looked at Darlene, then at Brad, calculating, probably realizing his clients had lied to him about a few things. The offer stands, Brad said, but his voice had lost its confidence. We can settle this quietly. No one needs to get hurt. It's too late for quiet. I picked up my coffee mug. See you tomorrow night. County Administration Building, 7 p.m. Bring everyone. It's going to be quite a show. I walked back inside. Through the window, I watched them argue. Darlene gesturing frantically, the attorney shaking his head, Brad on his phone. After 10 minutes, they left. Tires spitting gravel. My phone rang again. This time I answered. Vernon, it's Shayla. Are they gone? Just left. Good. Because I've got something. She sounded excited. I traced Grant Pritchett's bonus payment. The $50,000. It came from a county infrastructure fund matching grant program for developers who meet sustainability targets. Except Ridgemont Point didn't meet any sustainability targets. Someone falsified the application. And guess who approved it? Ronald Vickers. Give a man a prize. Papers rustled on her end. I've got the application, the approval signature, and bank records showing Vickers deposited $10,000 cash 3 days after signing off. We've got him. Can you prove the cash came from Grant? Not directly, but Grant withdrew $15,000 cash from DP Development Solutions the same week, and Vickers bought his boat 2 months later. She paused. It's circumstantial, but combined with everything else, it paints a picture. Add it to the presentation. Already done. Vernon, this is bigger than HOA drama. This is fraud, bribery, embezzlement. When we drop this tomorrow, it's going to explode. After she hung up, I walked down to the lake. Afternoon, sun glinted off the water. 87 homes sitting up the hill with dry pipes. Families hauling bottled water from grocery stores, wondering what the hell they'd gotten into when they bought into Ridgemont Point. I almost felt bad. Almost. But then I remembered the newsletter. The slashed tires. The phone calls to Mrs. Kowalski. The dead rat in Shayla's mailbox. They'd wanted war. Tomorrow they were going to get one. Saturday afternoon, 24 hours before the hearing, Darlene made her final move. I was in the barn organizing tools when I heard the sound. Diesel engines. Multiple vehicles. I walked out and saw them coming up my driveway. 2 pickups, a cement mixer truck, and Darlene's BMW leading the convoy like a general commanding troops. 8 men climbed out. Construction crew, hard hats, work gloves, the kind of guys that get paid by the job and don't ask questions. Darlene stepped out of the BMW, wearing jeans and a work jacket, trying to look hands-on. Failing. What's this? I called out. Emergency infrastructure repair, she said. Didn't look at me. Gestured to the crew. The easement runs through your property. We have legal right to access for repairs. You can't stop us. Brad Kessler emerged from one of the trucks, holding a rolled document. Easement Agreement, Article 7, Section 3. The HOA retains perpetual access rights for utility maintenance and emergency repairs. We're exercising that right. I looked at the cement truck, at the crew unloading forms and rebar. What kind of repair needs concrete? Protective housing for the valve assembly, Brad said smoothly. Too smoothly. Safety measure. Code compliance. They're going to encase the valve in concrete, so I couldn't shut it off again. You're not putting concrete on my property. We're putting on the easement. Darlene smiled. That same predatory smile, which, according to our legal right, doesn't give you authority to make permanent structural modifications without landowner approval. I pulled out my phone. But go ahead. Start pouring. I'll call the county building inspector, and we'll see if you've got permits for this work. The foreman, a thick-necked guy with a sunburn, looked at Darlene. Ma'am, he's right. We need permits for permanent structures. Just do the work, Darlene snapped. Not without permits. The foreman stepped back. I'm not risking my license. Darlene's face flushed red. She turned to Brad, who was already on his phone, presumably calling their attorney. I dialed Deputy Martinez. Put it on speaker. Deputy, this is Vernon Huxley. I've got 8 people and a cement truck on my property attempting to install unpermitted structures on a utility easement. Can you send someone out? On my way, Martinez said. Darlene heard it. Her jaw clenched. You think you've won, she said quietly. You think tomorrow night you're going to embarrass us in front of the whole county, destroy our reputation, ruin our lives. I think tomorrow night the truth comes out. The truth. She laughed, sharp and bitter. You don't care about truth. You care about revenge because you're a bitter old man who can't accept that the world moved on without you. I looked at her, really looked, saw past the designer clothes and fake confidence, saw the desperation, the fear. You built 87 homes on a lie, I said. You embezzled money from your neighbors. You tried to steal my land to cover up your husband's corruption, and now you're trying to intimidate me into silence. I shook my head. I'm not the bitter one here, Darlene. I'm just the one who didn't let you get away with it. A sheriff's cruiser pulled up. Martinez stepped out, hand resting casually on his belt. Afternoon, folks. Someone want to explain what's happening? Brad stepped forward with the easement document. Martinez read it, looked at the cement truck, looked at me. Mr. Huxley, do they have permits for this construction? No, sir. Martinez looked at Brad. Then you're going to need to leave. Easement access doesn't override county building codes. You want to install permanent structures. File for permits like everyone else. This is essential utility maintenance. File for permits. Martinez wasn't asking. The crew started packing up. Darlene stood there, hands clenched into fists, watching her last desperate play fall apart. As the cement truck pulled away, she walked up to me, close. Close enough I could smell her perfume. Something expensive and floral that probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill. Tomorrow night, she said, voice low, when you stand up there and try to destroy us, remember this. We have lawyers. We have money. And we will fight you for years. Every penny you have, every hour of your life, we will take it. You'll win nothing but legal bills and stress. Maybe. I held her gaze. But at least I'll sleep at night. She turned and walked back to her BMW, drove away trailing dust. Martinez waited until they were gone. You okay? Yeah. Tomorrow's the big hearing, right? 7 p.m. He nodded. I'll be there off duty, just in case things get heated. After he left, I walked back down to the lake. The sun was setting, painting the water in shades of amber and gold. I sat on the dock where Caroline and I used to sit, feet dangling over the edge, watching the light change. My phone buzzed. Text from Shayla. Everything ready. Presentation loaded. Evidence binders printed. Media confirmed. Marcus has his report. Iris has her cameras. We've got them. I texted back. See you tomorrow. One more night. Then the truth. I thought about what Darlene said, about years of legal battles, about stress and bills and fighting. She was probably right. This wouldn't end tomorrow. Even after the hearing, there'd be lawsuits, depositions, appeals. It would drag on. But I'd started this for a reason. Not revenge. Justice. There's a difference. The lake didn't care about any of it. It just sat there, ancient and patient, holding its memories. Holding Caroline's laughter, my father's lessons, my grandfather's stubbornness. Holding everything. Tomorrow, it would hold the truth too. The county administration building's conference room was packed by 6:45 p.m. I arrived early with Shayla and Marcus Webb. The room held maybe 150 people. Folding chairs in rows, a long table at the front for the water board members, fluorescent lights that buzzed like angry wasps. The air smelled like old carpet and nervous sweat. By 7, there was standing room only. I counted 83 Ridgemont Point residents. I knew because they clustered together, designer casual wear and expensive watches, whispering among themselves. Some looked confused. Some looked angry. A few looked scared. Darlene sat front row center. Brad Kessler on her right. Attorney David Keller on her left. Grant Pritchett, who I'd only seen in photos before, sat 2 seats down. Mid-40s, fit, polo shirt, arms crossed. He looked like a man preparing for a fight. The rural community showed up too. Emmett and his nephew. Mrs. Kowalski with 3 of her neighbors. My 40 customers, the people I delivered water to for decades. They filled the left side of the room. Iris Williams stood in the back with a camera operator from Channel 7 News. 2 other reporters I didn't recognize set up near the side wall. Deputy Martinez leaned against the back wall in civilian clothes. He caught my eye, nodded. The water board chairman, Gary Thornton, retired civil engineer, 70s, white hair, no-nonsense glasses, banged a gavel at 7:02. This emergency session is called to order. We're here to address concerns regarding the Ridgemont Point development water system. He looked at me. Mr. Huxley, you requested this hearing. You have the floor. I stood up, felt 83 pairs of Ridgemont Point eyes on me, felt Darlene stare like a laser. Walked to the front. Shayla handed me the first binder. Thank you, Chairman Thornton. My name is Vernon Huxley. I've lived in this county my entire life. For 30 years, I've operated a licensed water delivery business serving rural residents. I opened the binder. 3 months ago, the Ridgemont Point HOA attempted to claim my shoreline access rights. That dispute led me to investigate their development permits. What I found is a pattern of fraud, corruption, and illegal construction that puts 87 families at risk. I placed the first document on the overhead projector. This is Ridgemont Point's original permit, filed March 2021, approved for Phase 1, 50 residential units with private well water system rated at 45 gallons per minute. I placed the second document. This is their occupancy record, 87 homes, 37 over permitted capacity. Murmurs rippled through the room. Several Ridgemont Point residents leaned forward. How did Phase 2 get approved? I placed another document. This amendment, filed August 2022, changed Phase 2 pending county water hookup to approved for well expansion, signed by County Inspector Ronald Vickers. I paused. Except the water district never approved expanded well capacity. In fact, they flagged concerns. I showed the water district meeting minutes. April 2023. Engineers report recommending mandatory county hookup before Phase 2 occupancy. The agenda item was dropped. Never resolved. Just disappeared. I looked at the board members. Mr. Vickers retired last year. Bought a 42-foot boat. Paid cash. On an inspector's salary. More murmurs. A Ridgemont Point woman raised her hand. What are you saying? I'm saying your development was built illegally and someone was paid to look the other way. Darlene stood up. This is slander. It's public record, Shayla said, standing. And I have more. She walked to the front, handed me her binder. I stepped aside. Shayla Briggs, forensic accountant, Ridgemont Point resident, Lot 43. She placed her first spreadsheet on the projector. HOA annual revenue, $470,000. Published expenses, $180,000. Difference, $290,000 unaccounted for. The room went silent. Most of that money went here. She showed the next page. DP Development Solutions, Delaware, LLC, owned by Grant Pritchett. She pointed at him, who is married to HOA President Darlene Pritchett. They've paid his company $224,000 over 28 months for consulting services with 0 deliverables. A man stood up in the Ridgemont Point section. That's our money. Our HOA dues. Yes, sir. It is. Shayla didn't smile. Just stated facts. It's embezzlement. Chaos. 20 people talking at once. Chairman Thornton banged his gavel. Order. Let them finish. Marcus Webb stood next. Walked to the front with his engineering report. Marcus Webb, civil engineer. 30 years experience. I've analyzed the well system. He placed a chart on the projector. Current aquifer level has dropped 11 feet in 3 years. At this rate, the well fails completely in 14 months. Maybe less. He looked at the Ridgemont Point residents. Your homes will have no water. 0. And there's no county hookup approved or budgeted. The woman started crying. Her husband put his arm around her. Grant Pritchett stood up. This is a coordinated attack by someone with a personal vendetta. Mr. Pritchett, I held up one more document. This is your county infrastructure grant application. You received $50,000 for sustainable development practices. Except your development doesn't meet any sustainability criteria. The application was falsified. I placed it on the projector. Approved by Ronald Vickers. You withdrew $15,000 cash from DP Development Solutions 3 days before Vickers deposited $10,000 cash and bought his boat 2 months later. Grant's face went white. This isn't personal, I said. This is criminal. Iris Williams's camera was rolling. The Channel 7 operator zoomed in on Grant's face. Darlene stood. Grab her purse. We don't have to listen to this. Actually, you do. Chairman Thornton's voice was steel. Sit down, Ms. Pritchett. She sat. I looked at the room, at the Ridgemont Point residents who'd just learned their homes were built on lies, and my rural neighbors who'd stood by me, at the reporters recording everything. 3 months ago, Darlene Pritchett tried to steal my water access because her development is failing and she needed someone else's system to save it. Instead of admitting they built illegally, they tried to destroy my reputation, vandalize my property, and intimidate me into silence. I met Darlene's eyes. It didn't work. I placed one final document on the projector, the utility easement map. The water line serving Ridgemont Point runs through my property. I control access to that easement. For the past 72 hours, I've exercised my legal right to shut off that access for maintenance. I looked at Chairman Thornton. I'm prepared to restore service on one condition. The HOA agrees to an independent audit, full financial transparency, and a binding agreement to connect to county water within 12 months. Darlene's attorney leaned over, whispered urgently. Chairman Thornton looked at the district attorney. I hadn't noticed him enter, but he was standing near Martinez now. Mr. Pritchett, Mrs. Pritchett, you have the right to remain silent, but anything you say can be used. We'll cooperate, Darlene's attorney said quickly. Full cooperation. Mr. Huxley's terms are acceptable. The room exploded. Residents shouting questions. Reporters pushing forward. Martinez stepped between the crowd and the Pritchetts. I walked back to my seat. Shayla grabbed my arm. We did it. Yeah. I watched Darlene being escorted out by her attorney. Grant following with his head down. We did. The district attorney filed charges 3 days later. Darlene and Grant Pritchett. Embezzlement, fraud, conspiracy. Ronald Vickers, bribery, falsifying public documents. The news hit every paper in the state. Channel 7 ran the story for a week straight. Iris Williams's article got picked up by the Associated Press. I turned the water back on Sunday morning, 72 hours after I'd shut it off. The county appointed an interim HOA management company, professional, bonded, no connection to the Pritchetts. Their first act was commissioning a full forensic audit and approving emergency funds for county water hookup planning. The Pritchetts' assets got frozen. Their house went into receivership. By August, it was sold at auction. The proceeds, $487,000 after legal fees, went back to the HOA reserve fund along with the $224,000 recovered from the DP Development Solutions accounts. Brad Kessler resigned from a board, moved to Arizona. Dennison claimed he'd had no idea about the embezzlement. Nobody believed him, but nothing stuck legally. The HOA elected new leadership. Shayla ran for president, won unanimously. Her first board meeting, she cut monthly dues to $220 and presented a 5-year plan for county water connection. Cost, $2. $8 million, funded by recovered embezzlement money, county infrastructure grants, and a special assessment spread over 3 years. Nobody complained. They were just grateful to have a future. Marcus Webb got appointed to the water board. First thing he did was recommend a full review of of all development permits Ronald Vickers had signed. They found 4 other projects with similar irregularities. The state opened investigations. My business got busier. Word spread about the guy who'd stood up to the HOA and won. I got calls from rural families 3 counties over asking if I delivered that far. I didn't, but I helped them find local operators who did. Mrs. Kowalski baked me a pie. Coconut cream. Said it was for being a decent man in indecent times. Emmett and I replaced my truck tires together one Saturday. Took us 4 hours because we kept stopping to drink beer and argue about the Braves. When we finished, he clapped me on the shoulder. Your granddad would have been proud. That hit me harder than I expected. In October, Shayla and I established the Crystal Lake Water Education Fund, a nonprofit. The mission: teach property owners about water rights, HOA governance, and financial literacy. We funded it with 5% of my annual business revenue and Shayla's donated audit services. We offered a $2,000 annual scholarship for local high school students pursuing environmental science or civil engineering. First recipient was Maria Hutchkins, the daughter of that frantic woman who'd call when the water shut off. 17, sharp as a tack, wanted to be a hydrologist. At the awards ceremony, she told me she decided on her career path the night of the water board hearing. Said she wanted to make sure people had clean water and that nobody could take it away. I told her that sounded like a good reason. We started an annual Lake Appreciation Day, too. First Saturday in June. Free water testing for anyone who brought a sample. Educational booths about aquifer health and riparian rights. Kayak races for the kids. Shayla organized it. Emmett donated the beef for the barbecue. 200 people showed up. The Ridgemont Point residents came too. Not all of them. Some are still bitter, still blamed me for property values dropping 15% when the scandal broke. But most understood we'd save them from something worse. One evening in late November, I was closing up the barn when Shayla's car pulled up. She got out with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. Celebrating, she poured. County approved the water hookup permits. Construction starts in March. By next Christmas, Ridgemont Point will have sustainable water. Legal, safe forever. We toasted, stood there in the gravel driveway as the sun set over the lake, the water turning purple and gold. You ever regret it? She asked. The fight, the hearing, all of it. I thought about Caroline, about my father and grandfather, about 30 years of honest work nearly destroyed by 3 years of greed. No, I said, not for a second. The lake stretched out before us, dark and patient, holding its memories. Some battles you fight because you have to, some because it's right. This one was both.